We're delighted today to welcome Eddi Reader to talk to us about Scotland's referendum. Eddi is well known internationally. She is the recipient of an MBE and 4 honorary doctorates, and of course a winner of 3 Brit Awards. She is a much loved singer and songwriter. Eddi, why are you personally voting yes?
For the confidence that would come with standing on your own 2 feet, no one else to blame. For Scots to look at themselves through new eyes. I think that the natives learning and having full control over how the country's run is really beneficial to confidence. And the current model that we're in, that includes Scotland, doesn't serve Scotland democratically well. And there are real frustrations and problems that can only be fixed by Scots running Scotland. The power lying elsewhere, I think, is the root of a lot of these problems.
What are you most worried about regarding Scottish independence?
The same worries that worry any country. How to bring up your young, how to best look after the population, how to safeguard against unpredictables, how to maintain an accountable and uncorruptible government. That's a big one for me, you know. And I think that, you know, that's the opportunity we've got with independence, you know, how we can look after ourselves in the way that we want.
And do you think we can overcome that as an independent nation? Those things, we'll be able to do what we need to do to address those issues that are worries for you?
Well, yes, because I think that the first thing I'd notice with an independent Scotland is that the Scots themselves, I think they'd have a squeaky, clean, sharp eye on who's governing them and how they're governed. And I think that the apathy that exists right now will be dispersed just in one stroke because, you know, we want to get it right. And I think that the population will be on it, you know, like a dog with a bone. I think whoever's in charge will be, you know, accountable for everything, and I think that, you know, we'll notice that. I think the other thing that happens to me is that I think because of independence, I've myself personally become more fully active in politics, which I think used to be part of everybody's life. So I think politics will once again be something that people feel is within reach of themselves and not a distant thing for other people to get involved in. It will be right part of the home and part of your life, and I think that's a good thing. I think that awakening in Scottish people is what I notice, and I would absolutely put a bet on would happen with an independent vote.
And you mentioned apathy there. Why do you think that is? I know it's a big question, but...
Well, I think apathy exists because you have this overwhelming feeling that your vote doesn't matter. And in actual fact, if you look at the facts of our union and the terms of our union, you'll notice that no matter what Scotland votes for in the majority, it can never effect or bring in or get out a government that controls us. So first of all, you've got this funny feeling that you're not mattering. So that creates apathy. If you don't matter, then you don't matter.
But Scotland does matter.
Scotland matters to me immensely. It's the place that I've come home to after, what, 28 years of being away from it. I'm very surprised at this referendum debate because I've come from a place where I didn't consider myself completely au fait with all the political arguments of the day. In fact, I found them boring, and also I was kind of uninterested and apathetic myself. So when the referendum vote happened upon us, I had to question what it was, number one, and the first thing I noticed was I was feeling that the noise that I was hearing was about breakup and separation. And then I questioned that because I'm certainly a generous Scot. I don't believe in breaking up or separating from anybody. I believe we're all one, and if I had a box that said we are all one world, then I would tick that in a minute. But what I'm noticing about this particular situation is that there are powers that be that want us to believe it's about a family breakup when it's not. It's about a management deal. It's about who controls Scotland's money and Scotland's policy decisions. And the fact is that for 50 years, and at least my life, my voting lifetime, Scotland has voted centre-left. That's just a fact. And the majority in England have voted centre-right, and they keep going towards centre-right. So I'm not saying that they're any worse or better than us, but they're different, and they've chosen different methods to rule the whole of the UK. And unfortunately, because they're bigger than us, what they say goes, and Scotland's vote doesn't matter. You don't need to go and vote in a general election in Scotland because it doesn't affect what gets into power over you. That's a really serious lack of democracy in a modern country. My problem is some people say we're all one, we're all in a democracy, the whole United Kingdom is the nation. Well, you'd have to go and tell the atlas makers that, because they've got it all wrong then. You know, if we're not a country, if Scotland isn't a country, then we should have that debate. Do we dissolve internationally the countries of Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland and England? I don't think there's a flavour for that, so we have to deal with the reality. The reality is there is a country called Scotland, and there is a country called England and Northern Ireland and Wales. So how do you best manage those different countries? And I don't think an archaic 307-year-old contract done undemocratically by bribing 32 ministers way back then is something that we can build a foundation of better togetherness on. And I do think we can have a better union, but I think only after we have power in Scotland and we can democratically decide what kind of alliances we want to be in.
Eddi, looking forward, what do you think will be the most positive changes in an independent Scotland?
I do think that, as I said, I think that Scots will have a sharp eye on who's governing them and how, and I think that the apathy that comes from the overwhelming feeling that your vote doesn't matter will change, and politics will once again be part of people's lives, something that's within their reach to change and not something that's for somebody else that's not them. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to, because this referendum has taught me one thing, is that I can be powerful. I can be powerful. My little voice, my one little voice can be powerful. And yes or no, I see people everywhere becoming alive and awake to the idea that they have rights and they can speak up about what they want. And what I've noticed as well is that people like me, who last year were no apathetically because I wasn't really interested, have become don't knows and then become questioners and then become yes voters. I've never seen the opposite happening. So I think that a Scotland full of people that are actively involved in their politics and their lives is something to behold, especially because we're bright and brainy and we're generous people, and I know that. Even the idiots are, even the best of us and the worst of us, we're all quite generous community dwellers, and I'm hoping to see children grow up, Scottish children grow up with this absolute assumption that they are from a country and their vote matters. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And what do you say to the people who very negatively describe all of us who believe as you do that we're extreme nationalists, and that believing that of our country is in some way extreme?
I'd say go tell it to the French. Just apply that to the French. Imagine seeing a Frenchman in the street and saying, "Do you believe in your country?" And the Frenchman saying, "Mais oui, bien sûr, qu'est-ce que tu penses?" You know, "Of course I do, what are you thinking? Are you mad?" Nationalist! Imagine saying that to a New Zealander or a Maori or a Japanese person. It's so racist against Scots. and it gets my blood up because, oh, it doesn't get my blood up when it comes from Scots because I just think they're being conned, but it gets my blood up when it comes from people who are in positions of power, who know the difference between real Nazi nationalism and this civic nationalism, which is about internationalism for Scottish people. I think, you know, don't bully people, just listen to them, hear them out. Don't immediately that they say, I think it would be a good idea if we controlled ourselves, to call them bad names. It's very rude.
What does being Scottish mean to you?
Certainly it's only a question I've ever even thought about because of this ref. I never ever questioned that I'm a Scottish person. Every English person I know, every musician I've ever played with, every audience member I've ever talked to has never seen Scotland as not a country other than the one that they're in. So it's very strange to be at this age, which they call middle age, which I think is a bit optimistic, but you know, to be at this age and what are you? I'm a Scottish person, right, okay. What does that mean? Well, it means that I was born in Scotland. It means that my environment was Scotland. It means that the people that I was involved in were all Scottish as I was growing up. The lessons I learned were from a Scottish filter. So my granddad talking to me, the experience of Scottish males, Scottish females, Scottish school, Scottish environment, Scottish history, maybe. The amount that I did get when I paid attention was kind of what informed me of who I was. It's hard to quantify that now, but what I can say is that being away from it made me feel homesick. And I could be living in Inverness and I wouldn't feel as homesick as I was when I lived in France, in Paris. And it feels a wee bit like I've been the outsider. I rejected it when I was 18 because there was nothing here for me. I couldn't get a record deal. Being a singer, I didn't know where to go except to London. I actually went to Paris first, but then I was busking in London and then France, and I just noticed that being Scottish made people treat me differently to my English friends. And my English friends treated me differently. So it's other people tell you who you are, and I think what I've discovered about Scots is that I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud to be part of it because, you know, by accident of birth you could say, but it's still a fact that I was born on this side of the border. I can't change that, nobody can. I've got a feeling that if I was a Mancunian, I would be equally as fearfully proud of my background. I don't know, I have no experience of that. But I certainly know that being a Glaswegian Scot, that being told that we're all the same, that nobody's better than anybody else, those value systems that I went to London with that made me able to talk to everybody equally, a king or a tramp, all the spectrum in between, the snobs next door to me in London and the not so snobby people that were up the road that didn't speak to me because they didn't trust anybody, the Asians, the Chinese couple, you know, all of them saw me as from a place called Scotland. And it just, this debate tends to, there seems to be this thing where someone is trying to promote the idea that to say I am Scottish is some kind of embarrassment, kind of parochial, that word they use, you know, small-minded. I think, my God, how disgusting that you want to tell a child that's born here that they're smaller than they are. So I believe that I'm equal to any king of any other country, any person of any other country. I'm just equally available for all kind of discussion about how you know, spread your income. And I'm kind of hoping for the day where Scots when you look it up on your iPhone and they say what country do you belong to, that in between whatever it is, Syria and whatever it is, that we have Scotland in there. I'm fed up having to go right to the end and find U for UK, you know. I just want to be Scotland. I write it on every form, and now when I write my address I put at the end British Isles. Scotland, British Islands, because we'll never not be on the British Islands. So that's what I'm celebrating. I don't celebrate greatness because I think that's superiority. I feel that that's a product of an old empire system that is defunct. Get over it. We're all equal now. We're all, you know, women have the vote. We don't think rich people are gods anymore. Come on. I personally don't believe in the divine right of kings. I like looking at the pictures, but I'm not interested in them telling me that they're better than me. It doesn't work.
You're right. It's not Downton Abbey anymore, really, is it?
No, it's not. And who cares about that anyway? I like doing my own dishes. Thank you. And I always felt more Bill Shankly than... That was my goal. I feel like, you know, when he said things like... I love Bill Shankly because I think there should be a book of, like, the Zen of Bill Shankly, because the things he said were amazing, you know. When he would talk to a footballer who was using his head rather than his feet, he said, all your brains are in your head instead of your feet. They should be in your feet, you know. And he always says, if you do a job, you have to do it well. And one of the first jobs I had as a little singing 5-year-old through to 10 was to clean the close, and that was my job, and I did it for all the neighbours, and I used it to practice my voice, and the close were the best reverb that I've been looking for ever since, and that's the reverb I want all the time when I'm singing. That, to do that job well, made me relax and become equal with the world. So when I do the garden, or when I wash my floors, or when I brush my stair head, that to me is very important, that job, and I want to maintain that philosophy in life, that we're all supposed to be doing that work. We all look after the environment, we all contribute something, and I believe that in time even some of those people that hang on to the class system will let that go. It's useless.
Tell us, do you think Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling are suitable representatives of the Union?
Well, okay, here we go. This is what I think. Surely the Prime Minister that's in power is the best spokesman for the Union, not an ex-Prime Minister. That choice in itself, these people who aren't voted for by anybody, that choice to speak on behalf of the Union shows a degree of disdain for the process. That's my problem. Respect us. How dare you not respect us by not wanting to come up and talk about the terms of our union. I might agree with you. I might actually agree with you. But don't treat me like a child that doesn't know the parameters of my union.
One of the most exciting things about the referendum is that we're including our 16 and 17-year-olds.
Absolutely. I think young people are very, very smart, and they're much, much more able to ascertain truth from bullshit. Can I say that?
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely believe in them. I have two myself, you know, and also, you know, 100 years ago, it was 18-year-olds that were helping fight for independence for you know, India and for Ireland, and John McLean and the Clydeside workers there, the Red Clydesiders, they were all fighting for equality for workers and to stop this idea that we can leave our charity to some sort of generosity, that we can live in a world where people are unequal. That's always been challenged in Scotland, and I think kids are much more open to the idea that we're all egalitarians rather than, and democracy, than somebody who's, say, 50 like me, or, you know, in their 70s and 60s that's got a kind of stuck idea of life. I think they're open, and I want to say to all kids that are considering this vote, all kids, I mean younger than me, but all those younger people, All you've got to do is find out the terms of our union, find out what the problem would be with Scots controlling their money and their policy making, the things that they vote for, and then creating a union. There's people now that are telling you we wouldn't be able to have a union with anyone after we have control of our money and our policies. Find out if that's the truth, because I put it to you that it isn't the truth, and that many countries like Norway and Sweden used to own Norway and run Norway, they get on fine. You know, Canada and America, they get on fine. Ireland and the United Kingdom get on fine. You know, so ask yourself if Scotland really is such a horrible place that nobody will want to be in alliance with us. That's what I'd say to young people. Investigate.
You mentioned the terms of the union. Just let's get specific. What do you mean by the terms of the union?
Well, there are two things as far as I'm concerned, as I can see with my, you know, I'm not a politician, but what I do notice is that we have our own law, right? So there's a separate Scottish Parliament, there's a separate Scottish country, there is a border. I see it every time I go back and forward to visit my family in England. When you talk about the terms of our union, what is it that Westminster control that Scotland doesn't? Westminster controls all revenue, all of our money. We give them, say, a £5, they give us back £3. And then our policies are dependent on what people vote for in England, so because they've got more MPs. So the other term is our policies, decisions. With that £3 that we get back, we're told what to spend it on, or how we spend it. So that's the terms of our union. We get a grant, and our vote doesn't matter in choosing who governs us. So have a look at that. See if it's okay, and tell me if it's splitting up a family if we just decide to put the control of the money in the Scottish Parliament's hands, the people we vote for. Tell me who in Didsbury, Nottingham, Shrewsbury, Shropshire, who in there would notice the difference? None of them would notice the difference. Can I just say, there are three types of union that we're in. We're in a royal union, we're in a social union, and we're in a political union. So when you hear words like separation and breaking up the union, they're talking about the political part. They're not talking about the social part, which can never be broken. I will never break social union with my English cousins and my English friends, and the people that I'm in solidarity with will continue to be in solidarity with. I will always be in solidarity with right-thinking egalitarians all over the world, especially my neighbours in England. So the social union can never be broken. The royal union, we might decide not to have the royal family eventually, but I don't know, that's up to Scots. It's the political union that they're talking about when they say break up. They say political break up, but they won't use the word political in front of that word separation, because they don't want you to know that it is just a political management contract.
And just so we're clear, when you say they, who do you mean?
When I say they, and I don't mean the big bad lizard looking people like David Icke think about, I'm talking about people who are benefiting from the system as it is. The people who are benefiting through, for example, I noticed that the House of Lords that is unelected, I noticed that that's kind of like getting that scratch card where you get £1,000 for, you know, every week for life. At the end of your day, the goal is you could get a peership, a peerage, and you could become a lord or a dame or whatever it is. And that's £300 a day plus expenses for the rest of your life. That's a good thing to go for if you like this system. You know, I think it's very unfair and undemocratic. So when I say they, I'm talking about people that are invested in the system.
Eddi, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today.